your financials. Okay. I'm told that my admirers on Zoom are requesting that I stand here. Okay. And you know I'm very dark. So, thank you. So basically, that is more of it. Data subject. Who is a data subject? Yes. So in other words, the specimen in scientific terms. Okay. All right, and then the collector? Yes. The person extracting the information. Okay. Then we also have a controller. Who is a controller? Huh? The Lord Mayor of the collection. Yeah. So the controller is ideally to determine the purpose of that data being collected and the mode, or the way they'll collect it. We also go to the processor. So we have the specimen, that is us, the collector, that is them, the controller, that is also part of them, and now we have the processor. The processor is now the one that processes the data from the controller and the collector. You get the basic definition? Then now we have the data protection officer. We have people who work for organizations. Do you have a data protection officer? Do you even collect data in your organization? You do? What kind of data? No, I'm talking about organization, within. Yeah, without your programming, external. You do? What kind of data? Yes. The NSSF, payee, bank details, where you smile. Exactly. So that is data collected within the entity. But also we have now, when it goes to external programming, the kind of beneficiaries for each and every project of yours. Those are also part of the data that you collect about those people. So the data protection officer is one that is appointed by the collector. Generally, is just to ensure that there is compliance with the Data Protection Act 219 and the regulations 2021. Okay? All right, so I hope we are okay with the basic definitions. Okay? So let's talk about data privacy generally. Who knows the history of data privacy? Do we have any idea on how it came about? Yeah? Guys, we are just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can have a very interactive session here. We have 1 hour and a half to discuss. Yeah? So the data privacy, or the right to privacy, is enshrined in the mother law, which is the Constitution under Article 27. And because the law was that brief, under just an article of the Constitution, there was need to broaden it a bit, or to broaden it more, and come up with an act of Parliament, that is the Data Protection Act. So the Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019, I think, was assented to sometime, I think March, and then it came into I think sometime in May of sorts. I don't remember, but it was in 2019. So it provides a detailed it provides detail of Article 127 on the right to privacy. The right to privacy is what we discussed earlier, the kind of data that is being collected, and then someone also mentioned the element of consent. Of course, some of them are voluntary, but data should be consented to. Okay, any other? Okay. Any other? Yes. Yes. Okay. So you've raised a very good point there. Some companies have had issues, especially when it came to data privacy and protection, data being sold, data being exchanged here and there for purposes of minting some money. So data privacy and protection is important for increased trust and credibility. The credibility is both on the individual and the entities that are collecting them, to prevent breaches that affect business, like you mentioned. Because of sharing certain data about people, you end up losing credibility as a business. I don't want to mention names here. For enhanced brand reputation, of course, through protecting it as well. The kind of data that moves out, the kind of data that you collect, if they are safe, then your brand is purely secure. Okay? The data protection officer. How many of you have data protection officers in your organizations? Are you one? Ah, okay. So, only one? Where do we work in the first place? Oh, it's not in their contract, they're just there. They're not being paid for it. Okay? So you are the data protection officer. We are glad to have one here. Very powerful person who determines which information to go out. Yeah, so like he has said, most of these positions here, if they are to purely advertise and they look for specific people, there is no qualification for it, by the way. I don't think there is any. Are you qualified to be did you go to school to be a data protection officer? Yeah. Yes. So most of them are merged into the human resource and admin, the M&E, and then some are generally on the heads of organizations. Could be the program manager, could be the executive director, could be any other person, depending on how they arrange. So it's not that they don't exist. So most of you have, but you don't know who they are. Yeah, because when you're handing over this document, who do you hand over this data? Who do you hand over to? Your NSSF, bank account, next of kin. It's the HR, right? Exactly. So, excuse me. Okay, so we usually have data protection officers, and they are provided for by the law, that they should be existent, and their job is to purely oversee compliance with the Act, both the Act and the regulations. So we have one of their roles being so purely most of them are to oversee the implementation of the Act, monitor and investigate the right to privacy and its observation generally, establish and maintain the data protection register where your details are registered within your organizations, set, monitor and regulate the standards of personal data and protection. Remember, we have the controller, we have the processor, and then we have the collector. Now those ones, there are certain standards under which the process must fall. Then also to conduct audits on the compliance with the law itself by the people that collect this data. So we also have those who one of their roles as receiving and investigating complaints relating to breaches or violations of the Act. So if your data leaked somewhere, somehow, you would definitely approach the data protection office or the officer. So commonly we have at least seen some people's CVs at Rolex points or sachets of medicine, those small envelopes. How many of you have seen your CVs there? Huh? How many of you have seen your CVs? Huh? Our rapporteur. Has your CV ever landed at a Rolex point? Not yet. That means you haven't applied for jobs. But if you've applied for jobs, there is a likelihood that your CV will land somewhere there. Yeah. So all those are breaches on these entities here in that they don't. Yes, you're most welcome. In that they don't take care of where your data goes, who lands on it, what they use it for. And by the way, there are people who buy papers. You know them? You'll find an advert on a pole and say, Bob agula mawulire amakadde. You know those people? So they buy such paper. And if an organization has bulk and they don't have a procedure for disposing of such, then you could easily have your CV in someone's Rolex. Okay, so what are the principles of data protection and privacy? Do we know them? I think we can have our PowerPoint so you can easily see for our Zoom people. Are you able to connect? Yeah. So the principles are generally for accountability, the lawfulness, minimality on the extent of what data is collected, and then the retention. So these are clear points that need to be observed when it comes to protection and privacy of data. So how long should data be retained? To what extent should this data be collected? And then how lawful is it? Is it within the law or it's just something there? And then how accountable to the subjects, that is us. For instance, you know the national ID process. They collect it and they account to you that we need this information to process your ID. We need this information to extend services to you. You know, nowadays you can hardly do anything without a national ID. So that's part of the accountability, which is very important. And it's also legal. There is also a certain limit, how far they go, and then the purposes for the retention. We also have the quality. What is the quality of the data being held or being collected? Then how secure is this data being collected? After you handing over this data, where else does it go? Is it secure? And then the transparency, of course, in that you as the subject, you participate in, not being told, Are you this? Or they give you something, vice versa. Okay. So even the subjects have rights. We have rights. Right number 1 is the right to be informed on why this data is being collected. I don't know, some of you are researchers. When you're going to the field, do you inform your subjects the purpose? Do you? Or you just say, hey, come here. What is your name? So you have to be informative when it comes to telling them why you're there, how, and who sent you, and for what purpose. Of course, the who sent you is money. The right to access, can they review? For us in the legal profession, even at police level, for someone illiterate who cannot read and write, there's always that officer who takes the statement. And then after taking the statement, he reads it to the person. And the person will say, this has been read to me, and it is true. So rectification, after reading through, you can easily correct and say, here you made a mistake, or you can even change and say, no, I meant 1991, not 1911. So those are the elements. We also have the right to prevent processing of personal data for direct marketing. Someone raised a point on data being shared. So many apps, so many platforms, so many websites and all that take our detail, but we don't get to know why we are signing up certain information, or even where it's going. Someone mentioned there was allegations of Safe Border selling data to other third parties for money. I remember some time back, I think 2020, and it was a very big deal. So that is just an example of how so many companies get your data and then sell. But ideally, that is against the law. Then we also have the right to correct, delete, and can even say be forgotten. So basically, those are the rights. Now, the good thing, we have 2 data protection officers. One is in acting capacity, and another one is fully slide 11. Okay, so there you go. The responsibilities of the data protection officer. You can see, 1, understand the internal facing policies on data protection. I don't know if some organizations have customized data protection policies. Do we have any here? The M&E and data protection officers, do you have? Okay. 2, report any breaches to the data protection officers. That is in compliance with the law. 3, seek guidance from the officer on all data protection issues. How many of you get access to your data protection officers or your human resource and admin? Do you? Do you discuss these things? Like, give me one incident that happened to you. And true story, not no lies.
Yes, so I work like in the society on individual membership engagements. So usually I have access to organizational platforms, like since I am a community manager. So whenever people join the program, sign up as members, I can access their, even including their age, because I work on that platform. So I am like a super admin on it. So usually we have discussion on issues like maybe someone has died. Yeah. How are we supposed to phase out their data and not keep it in our system? Someone, for example, sends me an email and it's like, I want to sign out. Yeah? So in according to our policy, when I terminate your membership, when our system synchronizes, you're not supposed to be receiving anything from us in the next 48 hours. Yeah? So we usually have talks about that when there's a system problem and maybe someone is complaining, for example, like they ask to be terminated and they're still receiving emails. Or, yeah. That's my usual agenda. So it's about their data and when they want it off, and we still have it when it's supposed to be out of our systems. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very good example of the privacy issues, the right to be forgotten, to erase your details, forget about the services they offer. Now, do we have any other scenario? Any other example? Yes.
I've been here thinking to myself how I probably don't remember signing on my contract for how long my photos are going to be used by my organization after I have left. But I think we have information in regards to how long we can keep in privacy the information regarding the organization. So to the staff, it might not be there, but to the organization, it's existing. So it's just a reflection that came to my mind in terms of data privacy. Something to talk to HR about.
Yes. So if you can customize your policies and squeeze them also, but squeeze them in a way that you won't get into trouble. Yeah. Okay. So the breach or any abuse of all what we've discussed, the brief lineup, of course attracts certain penalties and could be in form of fines, could be even imprisonment on any. So I invite you to look at the Act. For an institution, the data protection officer here and there, here it could attract up to 2% of your annual turnover as an institution. So you want the organization to pay you more? Observe. And then on personal liability, every officer, that goes individual, who knowingly, you know what knowingly is? Unknowingly or unknowingly is not a defense in law, because we say ignorance is no defense. So if you watch the non-observance of this law, then you're probably liable to imprisonment. So basically, that's more of what the presentation was like. Now let's go to the mouth of the discussion. Where is my registration form? There are two, but mine are different. Okay. So how many of us registered here? Have we all registered? Who hasn't registered? Okay. I see someone realize that, my parents' name, let me rub. Okay. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are we 6? No, that's different. That's for policy. This is for our training. Yeah. If you see, they don't have any logo. So post-COVID-19, we saw so many changes. Access to buildings, access to services. There was a lot of tracking. That's why I started by asking, who of you suffered from COVID and how did they get you? Yes.
Yeah, I happen to have suffered from COVID in 2020. at the end of the year. And after going to the hospital, I got about 5 people calling me, requesting to talk to me about my condition, how I'm feeling, and then they were asking for information on other people I may know who probably died of COVID, and whether they had informed the authority, any health center. And I would always ask them, how did you get to know my number? Where did you pick my information? And of course, it also goes to how the researchers are trained. Some would have this entitlement, like, I've called you, I know you have COVID, you have to give me this information. Then others would introduce themselves and they say, it's the mandate of the Ministry of Health for us to get information from you. Yeah, and I kept asking, I was still battling that question, like, where did they get our information?
That means you shared your data somewhere. Could be in a piece of paper, could be in a registration form, could be somewhere, and that's where they got it from. Or even you got on a border that had a book. From the hospital, yes. Who else? If you were ever called for COVID. We only had one patient here. Okay, so lately buildings, for instance, this building, when you were walking in, did you register? Did you register here? There was no book at the reception. You registered? You did not register? You were mafia. How did you pass? Because I have seen tough security there. So, post-COVID-19, there has been a trend of information being picked for purposes of course, getting to know who you are, the purpose of getting to work, for instance, accessing this building. Why are you here? What do you want? Who are you here to see? For how long are you here? That's why you sign time in and then time out. Then you also leave your telephone number. Now, that's different. There are other buildings where if you're to go to a place, you register and then you even leave your ID. Okay? It could be in exchange of a tag, could be in exchange of anything theirs, okay? So you leave your ID at the registry point, then they give you a name tag or a number, then you go and access that building. How many of us experienced that? It's even going on up to now. Most buildings actually in town, the big buildings, that is it for security? Because if you are checked thoroughly using the machine, or you walk through the scanner and they realize that you have no weapon whatsoever, then what's the whole point of holding on to your ID? Within that space of maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes while you wait for the lift to go to the 14th floor, maybe someone could photocopy your ID. We can accuse them, even if they're not doing it. So there is a lot of data collection now for purposes of, they say security, which of course we must all comply with. But it is unregulated because the people that we hand over this data to, we have no idea. Are they in any way for the building or for their own interests? Imagine you leaving your ID at a certain point and then you come back, it's missing. How do you explain that? I'm not saying it happens, but those are possibilities of certain things happening. Yeah? So this new change has brought in a lot of, it has tested our data protection and privacy law. Okay. If you're to look at the compliance issues, the way in which data should be collected, because what happens to that book after? Imagine that book. Like for instance, the book at the reception there, what happens to it? Do we say that these were the visitors of 2020? And for how long will they keep it? What is the procedure of disposing of such a book with people's vital data? Let's go to my list. How many of us filled in every detail? Because you wanted. How many of us filled? There are some things that you didn't know. I can see here someone rubbed the parent's name, but they gave me their location, so I can just track them. I can see someone here told me they're HIV negative. Who is negative here? Yeah? Did you even question me why I'm collecting this data? Or you just said, that guy also. Just give him. Or you've lied. Eh? It's possible that the negatives here are actually positive. Yeah. So, I don't remember also. But before you give out your data, there are certain questions you must ask in compliance with what we discussed earlier. What is the purpose? Why are you collecting? Short of that, there are certain information you say, I cannot give. I wouldn't mind someone just saying their name and leaving the rest blank. Because you don't know what I'm going to use this list for. I can go and say, I train these people, and I can claim maybe for each of you, I say I paid you guys 500,000. You are 6. That's how much. That's a lot of money. And I'd be happy. Huh? So, trading in information is a very big business. That's why today, this year's theme is big data, little data, and everything in between. There is a lot of money in sharing information. Let me give an example of Facebook. The algorithm of Facebook will know what you like. Let me ask, for instance, what do you like checking out on Facebook? Are you on Facebook? You're not? Not anymore. Why did you leave? Cyber security. Wow, okay. For you, another breed. Let me go that side. Are you on Facebook? I want someone who accesses Facebook regularly. Who? Are you on Facebook? What are the top searches that you always do?
Okay, my top searches are usually to do with tech trends and then politics around what's going on and what is new. Yeah.
When was the last time you searched?
I searched? I should say, okay, today I was on Facebook, but I didn't search, but yesterday I searched.
Have you noticed that even when you don't search, that kind of lineup keeps appearing?
Yes, I've noticed.
You've noticed? So, your name is there?
Yes.
Your email is there?
Even where I work.
All the detail is there? And they know what you like.
Because I want them to know.
Now, you are different. There are people who unknowingly give out this information. Now, put it this way, that if Facebook decided to sell your information based on your searches, do you know how many companies would rush to buy? For instance, those tech companies, they know that we have this guy who is ever researching, who is ever looking for us. We can customize something for him. You know that, right? So it's big business. That's why even when I come with a piece of paper like this, and I tell you, what's your HIV status? And you say negative or positive or what, or you choose not to say. The choice is entirely yours, but you need to ask yourself, why? So when I was in Gulu, someone did okay. Someone filled in everything here. Yeah, this one I'm going to send them mobile money. Yeah? She has missed. If she had put the HIV status, she would have received the money. So it's very, very important that you ask yourself the purpose under or under what circumstances this data here is being searched. So going forward, accessing buildings, if you cannot, or if you can do without it, don't share your data for your own security. Now, there are people who go signing up for certain programs on the internet, and they tell you, click accept. Then there are long terms. If you're to convert it in PDF, it's about 21 pages. Some of us have never read even a page. And now you're telling me 21 pages of what you don't even understand. And then you say, yes, you have sold. In layman's terms, you have sold your soul to the devil. Whereas some are safe. I'm not that IT savvy, but there are these things, cookies. What are cookies? What are cookies and add-ons and what? For a minute I thought that, okay, I think this is a cookie company. But then I realized that every company sends the same cookies. So it is something that really perturbed me, not until I understood that, well, those are things for tracking and all that. Now, when it comes to mobile phones, I have seen iOS has updated. After you've installed an application, it will ask you whether it should track your information or not, or track the application usage or not. And the choice is yours to either accept or deny. How many of us say yes? But do we have iOS users here? Or well, we are all there. So it's very important that while sharing our data, we keep close, we keep in proximity with the person collecting by asking those questions. Why? What are you going to do with this? For how long? What do I benefit? If it's for a service, for instance, the national ID, you know that you cannot buy a SIM card without a national ID. That is mandatory. And it is by law. Then we have these other ones here. Someone has created an application, or even these open Wi-Fi networks. You know, you just go and say, I want to get on WhatsApp. Then you find this internet. It is open to log into the network, but then there are some questions that keep coming. Yeah? So if you are not keen, you end up sharing all your data for whatever purpose. Then at least I've witnessed this one. There is the fraud on mobile money. Someone will call you, boss, how are you? It can even be 6 in the morning. My name is Brian, I'm calling from MTN. We are having a problem with your telephone number. We don't have, you're not fully registered. So what you, you have only 2 hours to switch it, to turn it off. So for now, to confirm your ID or to confirm your registration, please go to add-on. You know there is that part of add a call, if you're already on a call. And then they tell you, okay, now go to the add-on, and then you dial these numbers. And then because you're that uninformed, you end up following that whole procedure. Within that time, you don't know what you've shared with him. Because I remember, at least that one I've experienced, 6 in the morning, this guy gets me out of bed with his big head, and then he starts telling me today, and I'm like, boss, I don't know how to use this phone. Then he asked me, is it a smartphone? I said, no. What is it? The old Kabiditi. And then when he realized that I was playing with him, he ended up abusing me. And that is how they conclude. So all those are ways through which data can be extracted. Yeah? So we need to be very careful on how, why, and all that, especially when it comes to data. We already have a law, the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and its regulations, which give more detail on the law following the Constitution. So the arrangement of the law is that the Constitution is the mother. Let me see how I can connect it properly. So the Data Protection and Privacy Regulations is the grandchild. The Act is the parent, and then the Constitution is the grandparent. You get that analogy? The sequence that we have one, then the detail in the Act, then more details in the regulations. So that's more of the arrangement. So this information that you've shared with me is going to be destroyed. I need a volunteer. So I'm going to ask a volunteer to destroy this in our presence, so that people's privacy and status is okay. So now no one will hold me accountable, right? You've seen, huh? Well, she's there destroying it, so I know that is too much technology now. Okay. So it's being destroyed, whatever you people put in there. Please break it down in the smallest pieces that no one can trace. So thank you very much. I'm going to take a few questions, maybe on any other clarification that you may need on your entities or even generally individual. Yes.
I just want to speak this from experience. I just want us to take an example of the world we live in today. We have already talked about the fact that you need a national ID to access almost every service, yeah? I've been in places where failure to identify yourself makes you a criminal, yeah? Actually, you won't blame them at the first point. Take an example, usually when security forces feel like maybe there's an imminent threat or something, yeah? If you don't have that on you, you could actually be taken as a criminal, because they'll be like, we don't know where you stay, we have nothing on you, so who are you? Yeah? So that is one thing. The second thing is, we have already talked about the fact that my colleagues here are not on Facebook, which is very good, yeah? But there's so many other platforms that we use, yeah? It doesn't make any difference at all. So at the end of the day, we are trying to battle with this kind of life that, well, I want to chat with my friends, at the same time I need my privacy. So it comes back to the terms and conditions, yeah? The agreement that you sign to, like, by saying I agree. Yeah, it comes back to that agreement, yeah? Because at least for every different platform, you have the opportunity to read and be able to say either no or I agree, yeah? So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that we are caught up in a vacuum, yeah, where there's no escape. If you don't go to a social media app, you're going to go to a school. The school is going to collect. If you don't go there, you're going to a workplace. The workplace is going to collect. If you don't go there, you need a SIM card. They are going to get those details. So at the end of the day, me, where I said I want Facebook to get it is because I need Facebook for my work, yeah? So at the end of the day, I put it on a weighing scale. What kind of data can people be able to know about me, and what can they not know about me? So that is, for me, that's where I draw the line. There are things that you'll never know about me, even though you went where. But now, like my form, I put put my name, I put where I stay, because I can tell you I stay in Bukasa, but I am in Bukasa in a week maybe once. Yeah, that's just one of the places where I stay. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, even though you know that I stay there, that is it. The other thing, I put my marital status. So, okay, if you know that I'm negative, so what? Yeah? There are some things that I don't care about, but things to do like anything that can bring you back to me, okay, like can have leverage over me. One, my parents' name would have leverage over me. You could never find me feel it anywhere. If you actually tell me to feel it, we can argue.
What about next of kin?
Next of kin? Okay, I only fill in my next of kin when it is really necessary. For example, I'm taking a program, yeah? Maybe it's a training or school. Definitely, you will, yeah? Do these people really need my next of kin? Is it really necessary for me to put someone as my next of kin? For example, if you are traveling, then you need your next of kin in case you get into trouble. That's a person they won't be able to communicate with. So in such a circumstance, of course, you have to think as you. Yeah, you have to think as you and decide for yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. I am told that there's a next session that is online, so maybe if we just take 2 seconds.
I'll not use the microphone. I'll not use the microphone. You asked why I'm not on Facebook or on social media. I'm a victim of cybersecurity, and you said that your negative status has nothing on you. You have not been manipulated. My point is very simple that if you have a family or you have anything, it does not necessitate you to share that information. You do not have to share it.
Yeah.
I have dealt with it for 3 years, including police and everything. We are afraid to manage the place we have been to, and there has not been a secure solution yet. So before we had threats of many people bewitching you or losing your job or something, but cybersecurity is like a cancer, and the solutions are not well provided for in the Uganda constitution, even if the law is stipulated. So be a little bit careful, and something as small as your name plus your HIV status can make it easier. Someone can go to a hospital and look for your name, and if the negative status matters with that, that's a good beginning point for them, because already the information you share here is as true as the one at the hospital. So any point is a point of start.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very touching one there. We have to be careful, like I told you. Lindsay, we are pleased to have you, but I've just been informed that there is already an online session waiting. Yeah, but we had a fruitful discussion here. So I am going to request that we end here to give other people an opportunity to have a bit of the data first. But we can continue this discussion offline, if you please. So thank you very much to our online audience and our distinguished, I will call you panelists because you literally participated